So we talked a little bit about potential income. Let's talk about the outgoings, the cost to come to market. I think that may be of a concern to some of our viewers and members. There's a time cost, obviously, in putting it together. But what does it cost? We've heard that traditional publishers, it's kind of back end charged. They do it up front. But if you were coming to self-publish, what might you be looking at cost-wise?
So you've got to see self-pub. So if working with a traditional publisher is pay in arrears or pay out of your earnings, if you like, or pay after publishing, self-publishing is pay as you go. So you've got to kind of think about your lost time for doing whatever interviews or research you want. So at frankly, in all of these, your time is going to be the same pretty much, except if you completely self-publish. If you go with the least cost, the lowest cost way, then it's going to cost you the most time. Now, I can't price your time. How much do you value your time is a tough call. So self-publishing is for someone who wants to get their book out and really wants to minimize the costs. Then that's the way to go. But you should consider paying for a decent cover. So having an artist work in Photoshop, create a decent cover is you can spend as much as you want, but I would be tempted to spend about £500, $600-700 to get a really good cover. There's an art to it, what goes on, how it's going to look not just on the shelf, but frankly, digitally. So the front cover, when it's reduced to Amazon size, thumbnail size, it's still got to have a visible image and a shape. A mistake that we made with one book was we created a book with a white cover. Some years, this is a facilities management. So on an Amazon page, that just kind of disappears into the background.
Oh, right. Okay.
Since then, forever, we've spent money on great design because it matters. So you've got to talk about cover design. You can edit yourself. I would urge you to pay for an editor. Not a proofreader. I mean, yes, a proofreader, you also need someone who'll spell check for you later. But an editor is someone who'll say, in the early part of the book, in chapter 1, you said later on we'll address X, Y, and Z. And you never actually got to that. Or they'll say chapter 3 should really be chapter 1 and so an editor will look at the narrative arc of a book and actually will give you some real insights into you've written the wrong book here. And actually that happened to us with the You Should Write a Book. We started writing the how-to book, but realized that we needed to write the why write a book first. So I think...
Where would you find an editor, Stephen?
There is a wonderful book called The Writers and Artists Yearbook.
There we go. Yeah.
So editors are in there. There's also something called the Alliance of Independent Publishers and Editors. So I'll give you some links to that as well. Right. So there's an association in the UK, and I think there's the same in the US. Another place to go is a service called Upwork. upwork.com. So editors all over the world offer to edit for you, and you can either pay per hour or offer a flat fee. And I would always offer a flat fee. The thing people foul up with on getting freelancers on an online site is never testing. So I would urge you, give them something to read, give them a short article as part of your selection process. One thing I've done in the past is give someone an MP3, for example, a sound file with my name, in it. I want to see if somebody transcribes my name correctly and can find me on the web and spell it correctly. So if you want to test if somebody's a good editor, give them something to edit. Give them an early article that you wrote or a couple of thousand words. Not fair to give them more than that. But the thing is, if they're keen to work with you or for you, they will do the test. If they're not keen to do the test, then that's kind of telling you something anyway. So on Upwork.com, I would always upload a test, something for them to do. So flat fee could be £5,000 or £6,000 to do an edit. you're talking about a week, maybe 2 weeks solid work, reading
Right.
30, 40, 50,000 words, making recommendations to you. So a good editor will cost you, but it is so worth it. So worth it. You do not want your book to be another one of those awful books in the marketplace, because your reputation is at stake. You talked about, the suggested title for this was something you came up with: Books Build Brands. How much is your brand worth? The editor is something you should not skimp on, because we're putting your IP in the hands of your aspirational clients. It's got to be good.
It's got to be good.
It's got to be good.
Okay.
You may have some proofreading costs. If you're going to then print it, you're going to have to find a printer local to you, ideally, or in the country where you live. And I would urge you to print a few copies, a couple of hundred copies, rather than 3, 4, 5,000. So print batches. So we're in the launch process of this. So we've just printed 350, which will pretty much all go to Amazon, plus to our guests. And when we have online seminars and other launches, we will print off another 350. So depends how many copies you want, but this will cost you £2. So
Right.
if you have 100 copies you want to give away to family and friends or to great clients, 200 quid for 100 copies.
Okay.
So I think then you're into the question of how much do you value my time? Because there are hybrid publishers who will, for a service charge, basically project manages for you.
Yeah.
So you would invest your time in the IP creation. You would do the interviews. You would write your 20, 30, 40, 50,000 words. The hybrid publisher would take your manuscript, would edit it, would actually hold you accountable while you're writing, would find a printer, would find a designer, would take that back-end work off your hands. That's a service deal, if you like, and that can range from £5,000 to £10,000 to £15,000 or £20,000. It just depends on the kind of caliber of person that you want managing the project, how significant it is for you. Right. So if I could try and recap, you work with a traditional publisher, you don't have to put anything up front, but you will not make any real revenue on the back end from sales. And they will see you as the main customer. Yeah. So if you want to buy 100 copies, this is $20, £20. So if this were published by a traditional publisher, to buy 100 copies would cost me £2,000. So you pay at the back end with a traditional publisher. If you want to self-publish, the investment is your time. And then you're doing it totally at cost. Would recommend £500 for a cover, would recommend an edit, minimum £5,000. For a good editor, it'll cost you more.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about ghostwriting. If you want to write a book and you actually have no time at all, you can pay for a ghostwriter, someone who will interview you and turn your book into your interview into a book. And if you want a good ghostwriter, you're talking about 30, 40, 50,000 pounds.
Really?
Because you've got, how much time will it take them to write it as opposed to you? But think about this, if your book creates, that you create, wins one client for you, what is a client worth? For these high net worth individuals who are maybe putting massive projects with financial planners or financial advisors or legacy projects, then what is that worth? So for me, my leadership work, if I get a deal from a major corporation, Esso or Microsoft, one project will pay multiple thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. So if your clients are, the aspirational high-value clients that you have are high net worth, this is the cheapest form of marketing that you can do. How much would an exhibition stand cost you and that's gone in a weekend. How much would, I don't know, hiring somebody to do your content marketing for 6 months?
Yeah, or video production, or whatever that might be.
I don't know. So for me, when you look boldly at the price of publishing, whether you go with a traditional publisher or self-publishing or one of the new hybrid publishers, you've got to measure that against an exhibition stand, someone to do your content marketing, somebody to do your marketing full stop. Because actually, Jackie and I have found that we don't have to do any marketing other than the book, because the book is its own marketing. It creates its own content. It creates its own life cycle, hardback, paperback, audiobook, plus all the content. And so it is the cheapest form of brand building, the cheapest form of marketing you will ever do. And it's the most long-lasting, the most enduring. It has the most persuasive impact of anything that you will create. It's an utter no-brainer.
Right.
I don't understand why most people don't do it. And I think it's because of all the myths that we've touched on. I'm going to be writing it for 2 years. Well, you can. You can spend 2 years if you want. Why not streamline it if you know how? Is this making any sense? Is this enough for you?
Yeah, absolutely, and I really thank you for the time. So we're kind of heading towards close now. As I say, I found it fascinating, and it's we've, as I say, in our community we have published authors already, and it's something that we've been asked to put together. As you know, Octo's about actionable ideas. So before we go to the way I'd like to close, is there anything you feel I've missed just to quickly touch upon? I mean, I know you're going to share resources. We're going to publish them through the app, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything that our audience or myself missed in asking you that you wanted to cover?
I don't think so.
Right.
I think if I could just recap in my own mind so I'm clear where we're coming from. There's 3 questions. Why write a book? And it's kind of for you. But I think there's, broadly speaking, a business case to help you attract new clients, a marketing case to replace a lot of the stuff that you already do and make it more strategic and more focused. And then there's a case for inspiring your community. So whatever reason you have for writing a book, be absolutely clear about that. And they're not mutually exclusive, as you said earlier. Yeah. In terms of how to write a book, I don't have the time is a myth. If you get the why right, then you will make the time because it has the urgency. However, what you're actually looking for is about an hour a day. And anybody can find an hour a day, surely, if something is important to you. And we can certainly help you structure that time. How to publish, you've got 3 options: traditional or mainstream publishers, for the old myth that the brand matters. But I think with that little test that we did earlier, nobody remembers who publishes these things. And they're not as good quality as you can leverage. Self-publishing, the big plus is you can minimize the cost, but you suck up an enormous amount of your time, and you will be learning how to do a lot of these things that actually aren't germane to your day job. So self-publishing is possible, but I would urge you to consider hybrid publishing. Find somebody who can project manage and hold you accountable for getting it out there. So that would be my end of day recommendation, is to find someone who can help you get your story out there. Because ultimately, if you don't tell your story, you're doing yourself a disservice, because a book is a profound, enduring, high impact way to change someone's life for the better.
Well, listen, Stephen, that's fantastic.